We have a lot of good information about the fourth stimulus check, so be sure to stay until the end of this video. New relief payments will be going out to eligible Americans this week, but some of you may need to pay this relief money.
You know, the way I see it, infrastructure gives people what they need to get where they need to go. That's my definition of infrastructure. Help the people get where they need to go. And so think about the buses that are around us, the bus that's behind me. People rely on public transportation for all kinds of reasons. To get groceries, to get to school on time, to get to work on time, to get to church on time. For millions of Americans, public transportation is part of their day every day. And a bus stop within walking distance can make all the difference versus a bus stop you have to walk for half an hour to get to. And we all know what it means for someone to miss a bus by just 1 minute, and that it can mean being at least an hour late for work. All of these are issues that we will address by paying attention to the need to put resources into our public transit systems. And we all know that we're on one of these beautiful electric rail cars, but we all know what it's like to be on an outdated rail car. We were talking about that in terms of the frequency that it might break down and the frequency with which it needs repair. In states across our nation, public transportation is not as fast or as frequent, as safe or as healthy as it can be.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you to Secretary Yellen and Chair Powell for being with us today. One of the things that I also wanted to focus in on is the very important topic of climate change in terms of the Treasury and the Federal Reserve's role in that. The United States just returned from COP26 in Glasgow, and where participating nations agreed to reduce carbon emissions in order to remain within the 1.5 degrees Celsius benchmark as acknowledged by the Paris Agreement. The Financial Stability Oversight Council, or FSOC, recently released a report exploring the risks that climate change poses to our financial system. And while it is the first time that FSOC has designated climate change as a threat to U.S. financial stability, I was disappointed to see that the report, which is intended to serve as a blueprint for federal regulators, makes no mention of any timelines or policies needed to stay within that 1.5 degrees Celsius target. As a matter of fact, the FSOC report, in discussing climate change, doesn't discuss the 1.5 degrees Celsius target at all. And instead, its focus is on general data disclosure and review. Secretary Yellen, can you explain why the report fails to make mention of globally acknowledged targets for climate to prevent further climate change degradation?
Well, FSOC's mission and responsibility is to identify threats to financial stability of the United States and to coordinate across regulatory agencies to make sure that they're addressed. Treasury is also involved with the administration in trying to put in place policies, economic policies, tax policies, spending policies that will address climate change itself. And of course, very substantial policies are included in Build Back Better, and the infrastructure plan also contain policies that address climate change and are oriented toward trying to meet our commitment to the 1.5% target.
Thank you, Secretary Young. As a general note, I do think it's important that, perhaps we consider the fact that there are substantially different financial risks between 1.5 degrees Celsius, 2 degrees, and beyond. But, when we look at some of our partners around the world, Sweden's Riksbank
Manchin said he may not back President Biden's social spending plan until 2022. And the Senate Democrats are wishing for a holiday gift in the form of approving Biden's $2 trillion domestic spending bill. but Manchin of West Virginia seems ready to hand his own party a thick lump of coal. According to CNN, Joe Manchin is reportedly expressing skepticism to his Senate colleagues about whether they'll be able to pass the Build Back Better legislation this year. It's also given that all 50 Senate Democrats must band together to clear the bill in the evenly divided Senate over what's likely to be GOP opposition. Manchin is not committing to the legislation and suggested more work needs to be done to iron out the finer details. Manchin's reluctance to back the bill could capsize the timetable that the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer originally envisioned to wrap everything up and deliver Biden a major win going into 2022. So, it risks an abrupt halt of monthly child tax credit payments that tens of millions of families are relying on to cover expenses like rent, groceries, and childcare. The IRS will distribute the final monthly checks on December 15th, and families will receive the other half at tax time. The House bill renews the bulked up child tax credit payments for another year. It provides up to $300 a month per child aged 5 and under, or $3,600 annually. For children between ages 6 and 17, families can receive $250 each month, or $3,000 yearly. It will lock in the ability for the vast majority of American families to get the government cash every month. In acts by an insider, Manchin didn't commit to approving the child tax credit, as was laid out in the bill, only calling it a work in progress, and that raised the prospect of changes to that measure. Joe Manchin, folks, may not be the only obstacle standing between Democrats and their Christmas deadline. Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona is not on board with the package yet. She told CNN that she was negotiating in good faith with other Democrats. Plus, let's not forget that millions of children rose above the poverty line thanks to these payments. Unfortunately, there may be situations where parents need to pay these credits back. The payments are made based on filers' 2020 and 2019 tax returns. If there was a change in 2020, like an increase in income, then a taxpayer may not be entitled to as much as the IRS believes. If that's the case in 2022, when parents file their taxes, they may need to get the money back. Other reasons you may end up paying their payments back to the IRS is due to a divorce or a child aging out. So thank you again for your support, everybody. If you have any more questions about the fourth stimulus check, leave them down below.
Dick Van Dyke, Debbie Allen, Meteor. I think I left somebody out, but at any rate, I apologize if I did. Excuse me, Midori, so I left out. And Debbie's here tonight. Jill and I met them as ordinary fans. And we did so as President and First Lady, recognizing how it touches and reveals the soul of America. I mean, you are the, in a sense, the face of America. You're the ones that most people associate with who we are as a country. And that's what this year's honorees have done throughout the